Hello, it is 3:32 p.m. on January 16th, 2025. I'm Sean Raymond, the chair of the KIPP Texas Safety and Security Committee and member of the KIPP Texas Board of Directors. And I am calling the KIPP Texas Safety and Security Committee meeting to order. I'm presiding in person over this meeting in Houston. Committee members with us today, please indicate that you're here. Seba, is she on?
She will be joining when she lands, just
Great.
in a couple minutes.
Jimmy Coates. Jimmy, are you here? Come back. Ellen Spalding.
Here.
Laura Howarth.
Present.
Craig Gorlowski.
Present.
Tembry Semin.
Present.
Yeah, and I see, Jimmy, we see you. We can't hear you, but I note that you're on video. So thank you for being here. Anybody else who's a member whose name I didn't call?
Did you call Paul Cordova?
Paul, I saved the best for last. I see that you're here. Thank you for joining us today. And I'm Sean Raymond. We have a quorum, and this meeting is being video and audio recorded. Also want to welcome many members of the public that are either here in person or spending quality time watching this video after the meeting is over. Let's first vote on the meeting minutes from our Safety and Security Committee meeting minutes from October of 2024. Would anyone like to move to approve those meeting minutes?
I so move.
Thank you, Craig. Would somebody like to second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Paul. Any discussion about those meeting minutes? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone voting no? That passes unanimously. Laura, our Chief Operations Officer, will now discuss the Texas Education Agency intruder detection audit updates. Laura, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Sean. Like I said, apologies for being at the airport today. Seba and I are both in transit from New Orleans, so I will be probably hopping off a little bit early to hop on a flight, and she will be coming in a little late, just so that you all know. But thank you for having me. I'm going to hand it over directly to Tembry and Craig, our Director of Safety, and Tembry, our Deputy Chief of School-Based Operations, to take us through our agenda for today. I'm immensely grateful for their leadership and partnership to ensure the safety of both our big and little Kipsters. Craig, I'm going to hand it over to you to get us started.
Thanks, Laura. Before I briefly go over the agenda, I just wanted to mention we will have a new member of this committee. It's Larry Rodriguez. On slide 2, if you go back to slide 2 for a minute, you'll see him a little bit past midway. Larry Rodriguez, he's formerly with the Region 20 Education Service Center. He was their safety director out there for a number of years. In fact, he has over 20 years experience in emergency management, and the city of San Antonio very wisely hired him away from the Regional Service Center, and he's working for City of San Antonio Office of Emergency Management. He'll be replacing Robert Mock, who has since left the Houston Office of Emergency Management. So Larry will be a great addition to the committee, as are all of our committee members, and we'll see him at the next meeting. Moving on to slide 3, you can see we have a very quick meeting today. We will primarily only be discussing TEA, intruder detection audits and findings. I can say that our meeting already has gone longer than the Spring Branch ISD Safety and Security Committee I sat on this morning. Their police chief wrapped that up in under 4 minutes today. So sometimes these meetings will be really short. Sometimes they'll go on beyond 30 minutes. And as I mentioned, today we only really have TEA intruder detection audits that we'll discuss in more detail when we get to the executive session. Just a quick reminder of the purpose of this committee and the role of it within the safety framework at KIPP Texas Public Schools. The committee is statutorily required by law not only to be formed, but to meet a number of times per year, at least 3. It's gotten up to 5 because of these intruder detection audit corrective action deadlines that require us to meet a couple more times than 3 times a year. But besides reviewing our intruder detection audit findings and making recommendations on corrective actions, this committee is also charged with reviewing our emergency operation plan and safety protocols that exist at KIPP Texas and also to suggest improvements for those plans and including training if need be. So that's just a brief overview of the role of this committee. We only had a few additional intruder detection audits since the last meeting. We are up to a total of 19, if you can see here, that the Texas Education Agency staff members have conducted. Of those 19, they only had 3 findings, which is definitely still on that upward improving trend over last year. And we'll be talking again about retraining, plans of action, corrective actions that are needed in response to those findings.
Hey, Craig,
We'll
just
do that in
one,
executive
Craig,
session.
one question on it. When
Yes,
it says
Sean.
audit year to date, I assume that is year to date 2024. So does that take us through that time period?
No, we had a little bit beyond that into the first couple of weeks of this year. They did come out and do some further intruder detection audits first couple of weeks of January here, and we've added those to this list. And when we go into executive session, Sean, I think Timber will point out which ones occurred about when. To you, Sean, to call the executive session.
Got it. All right, good. Craig, anything more for the public session that you want to share? No.
Not at this point.
All right, we are going to adjourn to executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.076, deliberation regarding security devices, personnel audit, and including TEA security audit matters. The time is 3:39. So we can stop the recording, and we are now back in open session. The time is 3:51 and the video is on. Craig will now discuss a safety spotlight and the projected topics for our next meeting together.
Thank you, Sean. And for those that are following in the slide deck, we're on slide 14 now. And I wanted to highlight this back from the nationwide KIPP conference that we had this past summer or last summer in July. And they did a reunification exercise at the conference, and Lauren Tembry were so impressed with it that they brought it back here and asked Amanda and our team to put this together. So Tembry, Amanda, Andre Briggs did a lot of heavy lifting. We gathered a lot of our operational directors in Austin and walked them through an actual exercise of what it would be like after a major event where students would have to be evacuated. Most common thought of scenarios after an active shooter event, like we've had in Uvalde, Santa Fe, and some other schools around the country. And when you have to get all the students and staff out of the building, because it does become not only a hot spot for the incident, but it's also a crime scene. So that's going to, it has to be cleared out completely. You have to put all those students and teachers somewhere. And then once you do that, you've got to reunify and account for all students and make sure to get in the hands of the correct parent. afterwards, and that's quite a task to manage. This little screenshot here just gives an example of how you have to keep students in one place away from the parents until you can actually verify parent identity with the child's identity, because if they see each other, given all the emotion that will be evident after one of those incidents, they're going to want to immediately take their child and run. And you can't do it like that. You've got to be very orderly, make sure all our hundreds of students are accounted for, as well as staff members, and also that they were safely returned to their parents. So that's what we did up in Austin. It was a really great experience. We're getting a lot of good feedback from our operations folks. And I'll pause here briefly to see if Laura or Tembry want to add to this highlight here with that exercise at all from what they saw.
Thanks, Craig. I will add that we also did this with our school-based operations teams following that. So all of our schools have at least somebody in their school who's now been through our reunification training process. And then we have plans to do it this summer with our full leadership teams at each of our schools so that we can just continue to build on this knowledge and make sure our folks feel prepared for some of the challenges that often feel like a little less practice in our schools.
I would also add that you can't just jump into an exercise like this. You've got there's what they call an emergency management, a continuum of development for the folks that will be involved, and you begin with seminars, a little bit of training, maybe a tabletop, and then you get into a full exercise like this. So this has been a couple years in the works, and I was very gratified that we had the full support of our top leadership in getting this accomplished. We hope to do more of these and plan to do more of these types of actual exercises. And Paul, if you have any out at all, then give me an invite. I'd like to come and see what you all are doing as well.
Absolutely.
Anyone else have any questions or add-on comments to this portion? Awesome. Next meeting topics. We will obviously be bringing any further TEA intruder detection audit findings. As I mentioned earlier, they will continue to come out every month to our campuses. And we definitely will have our 3-year cycle audit. This is an audit that's required all schools conduct across all of their campuses every 3 years. It's very intensive. There are over 1,500 data points and inquiries that are made during that audit. We have a team of well over 40 people or more that are assisting us with completing that audit on the ground at the campuses, and we'll have the results at our next meeting, which this committee must review before we can submit the results to the Texas School Safety Center, also as required by law. Questions on future topics? Oh, one more thing that's not on here, I should add. We're about 90% confident that we also will bring back the revisions to the emergency operation plan and the cybersecurity annex that we had submitted to School Safety Center, and now we're working on a few revisions that they asked for, maybe a dozen or so, which is pretty common as well. So those are what you can look forward to coming up at our next meeting, which should be April-ish, I believe. Tamara, do you recall the exact date, or Jenna?
I'll have to look. I'll circle back with you guys when we send out the follow-up.
Craig, thank you
Okay.
very much for that presentation. Does anybody on the committee have any questions for Craig about that? Well, it is 3:58 and we are adjourned. Have a great remainder to your week.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks,
Bye.
Craig.